stuff. Hey Alexa, hey Evelyn. Still haven't figured that issue out on Facebook. Okay. We're fixed. I think we're fixed now. There we go. Fixed.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Never used a machete before, as you can tell. Oh, shh. Hey, welcome.
In a minute, I'm gonna stop and look where we're at on GPS. Something out there. Heard something. I'm gonna pull up my GPS. See where we're at. Oh shit. You're not gonna believe this. We're actually going back towards the trail. We're not going up. We're going sideways. Here's something creepy for you guys. We thought we were going straight up north, like north. We thought we were going up this. Something up here. Just heard something. Something's up here. Somebody, an animal or somebody's up here.
All right. Let's get started.
Oh, it's a bird. Big bird. Holy. Yo, I thought somebody was out here.
Good afternoon, man. How you guys doing? Thank you for stopping by. And a couple things that we're going to be talking about today. Updates with regards to the building collapse. Let me give you a little bit of a summary so people know what we're going to be talking about. Evelyn helped me out today, sent me some articles and links. Thank you for that. What's up to the chat? Veronica, Wendy, Adrian, Clean Sugar, Stace on Case, Marie, BL, welcome. So a couple of things that we're going to go through. By the way, this article yesterday that we read, I'm not going to read it again, but it was a really great, well put together article by the Miami Herald, and the I guess the authors were Aaron Leibowitz, Mary Ellen Kloss, and Sarah Blasky. Really, really well put together articles. So I need to start mentioning them when there's articles like this. But for today, we're gonna listen to, I don't know why that popped up here. We're going to listen to the briefing. I'll skip through the Spanish parts or whatever we don't need to listen to. This was posted about 2 hours ago. And then we're going to go through some of the things, because supposedly, this is one of the interesting articles that was sent to me. Developers of doomed Florida Tower were once accused of paying off officials' report. This is by the New York Post. This is interesting. So we're going to briefly get into that after we watch some of the updates. We're also going to talk a little bit about the person that they hired, Alan Kilshimer, if that's how you say it. He's a KCE structural engineer. He has 50 years plus experience. He examined the Pentagon after the 9/11 attack stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about what he had to say. He did a preliminary examination of the other sister buildings. Now, just really quick to show you guys. Let's see. This is get a little closer. This is the building collapse right here, right? This is where it happened, which is faces towards like the beach. This is the East Condo, the Champlain Towers East Condo, and then there was another one, I thought. The East and something else. I can't remember the name right now. It's supposed to be here. One of these things. Let's see if I can find it. But there were concerns about so this is the South Tower one right here, the one that collapsed. There's the East one, and then there's supposed to be a North one also. And so there was concerns about that. So we're going to talk about a little bit of the sister buildings too, because he did a preliminary examination. The South, let me see, hold on. Okay, yes, they're looking into the East and the North to ensure safety. And one of the residents in one of the other towers was talking about that they were showing some of the cracks and some of the things that happened supposedly after the building collapsed. And so there was some concerns there. There was a voluntary evacuation that was going on. I'm going to show you these residents too of the sister building, the condo. This is from the North Tower, and they said that they're going to stay even though there's a voluntary evacuation. And so, a lot of times too, you know, elderly people, we talked about this in Discord yesterday. A lot of times they're kind of they don't want to leave their place of comfort. I've known many stories from other people where their family members, even here in Florida with hurricanes, some people, even though they have a mandatory evacuation, they want to stay, even though this is not mandatory. Also, there's a little bit more information about the woman that called her husband right before the collapse.
100.
Her picture was released. She was like a model and stuff like that. So we're going to get into that too. This is a brief story too. We'll talk about, this is some more of the family. I missed this clip yesterday. And also this guy here, which we're going to watch towards the end, he's going to kind of go off. You know, he feels that they're not doing enough. Things are going too slow. And then we got this interesting document, which is recent. This year, there was a document that came out that stated less than 3 months ago, before the collapse, the towers of the South Condo complex, the president of the condominium association warned in a letter that the damage in the building had gotten significantly worse since it was highlighted in 2018. So we're going to read some of this. It's a really long document, but we're going to read the first couple of pages at the end of this because it's pretty interesting. All right, so let's get started with this here first, the update. Let's go maybe right here. Just to kind of give you guys a brief summary of what's to come, you know. Oh, and here's some pictures too. Maybe I can show this real quick to you guys before we start. Let's do that. Let's do that. Inspection of collapsed building pointed to problems. A 2018 inspection of the South Tower of the building's 40-year recertification pointed to repairs needed with the building. However, it is not known if any of those problems contributed to the collapse. The report pointed to water seeping throughout the building, any concrete structure facing the ocean is exposed to corrosive salt water. Extent to the below level parking area. Video footage shows central portion collapsing first. Abundant cracking and spalling of beams, walls, and concrete columns in the parking garage. Ground floor pool deck of buildings was resting on a concrete slab that had major structural damage. And also, when this lady called her husband while she was on the phone and the place collapsed, she was talking about that, like, it was, they say by the way the call was, like, building collapsed from bottom. Everything kind of fell in on itself. It started at the bottom. It didn't start from like top to bottom. That's what they were saying. Another picture here, real briefly before we start. Typical cracking, spalling at parking garage columns. Spalling with exposed steel reinforcement at topside garage deck. Oops, let me not open that. Concrete spall at balcony slab edge in units 1008 and 211. I believe this is for the South Condo. I mean, I just downloaded the pictures that I could find yesterday. I believe this is for the collapsed building because they show a little bit of the other sister building too, some of the damage. Hairline cracking at underside floor slabs in garage. Stuff like that. There was another one. And some of these pictures you can see I put in the thumbnail. Balcony soffit deterioration. All right. Let's see. Is there anything else real quick? There's another one too. I think this is them looking at some of the pictures and some of the damage and stuff. Thank you, Regina. Appreciate that for the stars. So let's start with the update, the official update that came out about an hour or two ago. And I'm also going to do a quick little check on the Miami-Dade Twitter page.
Good afternoon. I've been able to meet with a lot of our first responders, was able to go over with the fire chief and look at some of the work that's been done, as we've done in many days. And I know a lot of people are looking at that with bated breath, as we all have been for many, many days. And people ask, you know, what is there hope or what's going to happen? And the way I look at it as an old Navy guy is, you know, when somebody's missing in action in the military, you're missing until you're found, and we don't stop the search. And so I think that that's what's happening. Those first responders are breaking their back, trying to find anybody they can, and they are going to continue to do that. And they've been very selfless. They put themselves at risk to do it. And I thought about that, and then having met this morning with many families who've, you know, this has turned upside down the worlds of a lot of really great people, not only in this state but beyond. And to hear the stories of the folks who are in the towers who either passed away.
And by the way, sorry, real quick, the numbers from what I'm seeing, which are always changing, just the FYI, I believe there's 11 people now that are deceased. An 11th person was pulled out of the rubble. There's still supposedly around 150 others unaccounted for. There's a bunch of weird stories popping up too. Just like this. They're trying to make me. Just like this real quick. This was kind of weird. Mysterious migrant boat washes ashore in front of collapsed Surfside building. Migrant boat. I don't know. Weird. And one of the other articles too we're going to touch upon, it has a little bit more information about some of the people that are deceased, a little bit of their background, how old, what they did. So we're going to briefly talk about that too towards the end of this video.
Away or missing, the amount of, I think, sympathy that's been pouring in is emblematic of some of the lives that many of these people had been leading. They have touched people all across this world, not just here in southern Florida and not just throughout the whole state of Florida. And you know, it's been very heartbreaking and very touching, because there's a lot of folks who've have been experiencing some unbelievable pain, and the folks that have either passed away or who are missing are almost invariably incredibly special people who've made a huge impact on not only this community, but communities all across the country and all across the world. And so when those guys are out there breaking their back on that pile, when they're digging tunnels and putting themselves in harm's way to try to find a void, to try to find an area where they could potentially rescue people, they have that mission and they're doing it, and they're not shirking from it, because they understand that in every one of those condominium buildings were people whose our different families' world revolved around them, grandmothers, grandkids, brothers and sisters. And I just thank them for all their efforts, and I thank them for leaving no stone unturned. And the families, we're going to be there for the long haul on this, and we're just not going to look back, and we're going to be there with any support that we can provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. We're going to have Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Nunez speak in Spanish.
Good afternoon. I'll reiterate what the governor said in Spanish. Buenas tardes. Estamos aquí de nuevo agradeciéndole a todos los que han estado trabajando día tras día, hora tras hora. Sabemos que sigue siendo un proceso muy difícil, un proceso muy doloroso. 200 le agradezco.
Here we are, day 6, and the search and rescue continues. It continued throughout the night, throughout the morning. There are currently 210 people working on the mound. The urban search and rescue team has been augmented by teams from all over the state and all over.
Nisha, thank you for the stars too. I didn't realize I had notifications turned off. It should pop up in a second.
The world. They are working throughout inclement weather. They're working as hard as they ever have, but they are able to make headway even in the face of all of those obstacles. So they're continuing with the 12-hour shifts. They take breaks. They're monitored medically, and just to make sure that they can get back safely on the mound, because it is such painstaking, grueling work. I cannot express enough how grateful we are for their service, their sacrifice, their passion. They live to save lives, and that is what we are witnessing. Their bravery under extremely difficult circumstances, continuing and continuing. We're also so very grateful for everyone who has joined us in this effort. Global teams, state teams, and national teams on standby for us so that we can relieve the wonderful men and women out there. We truly have the best in the world conducting this effort. The federal teams of the USAR search and rescue personnel are rotating in with our current teams. There are more than sufficient personnel on site. We do not need additional resources. We have the best, and we have sufficient, what we need to get this job done. Since our last briefing, no new fatalities have been confirmed, but we have been able to notify each of the 11 families who have lost their loved ones. This is very, very important that the notification has been able to occur, and we're grateful to our Miami-Dade Police Department for their very sensitive handling of this difficult matter. And all the names have been released to the public through our social media platforms. And today we were also very grateful to learn that our president, Joe Biden, will be visiting Surfside on Thursday. He's going to spend time with the families who are affected and with our first responders. We've had his support since he called me day one in the morning, and this is so critical that we do have our federal support. So we are very, very grateful for that, and we know that his support will continue throughout. I also want you to know that I've been in close touch with our state attorney, Catherine Fernandez-Rundle, and I am very supportive of the grand jury investigation that she has announced. I have pledged my full cooperation as she moves forward I have worked closely with grand juries in the past. I'm very familiar with the process, and I will do, and my team will do everything possible to aid them in their efforts to continue that investigation.
Thank you, Adrienne.
As
Thank
I
you,
mentioned
Stars.
yesterday, our building audit also continues, and we're taking swift action to immediately identify and address any outstanding issues with the buildings that have not yet completed their 40-year certification process. That's our priority right now. And just last night, our building officer notified one of those properties, a building in Northeast Dade, that 4 balconies must be immediately closed to residents due to safety conditions. So we are proceeding apace with all of the buildings identified, and I know within a matter of days or short weeks we will have addressed all of those safety concerns. And today I am also making an announcement that I will be meeting with subject area experts from multiple relevant fields, from engineering to legal to construction to development to soil to geology, to look closely at every possible angle on this issue related to building safety. So they will advise me on issues related to building construction, chain of custody and requirements for reporting, condominium regulation, and more, so that my staff and I can develop a set of recommendations for changes that need to be made at all steps in the building process to ensure a tragedy like this will never, ever happen again. And I will be meeting with these experts in the very near future, and I will be planning to look for additional experts who can advise me once further insights are achieved from this investigation. So we'll continue to pull in additional experts as new information becomes available to ensure that we're considering all possible angles, all possible factors and perspectives. For the families who've been impacted by this tragedy, we are continuing to do all that we can to support them in any way that they need. So our new expanded Family Assistance Center has over 20 agencies now offering support, short and long-term counseling, home assistance, travel assistance, psychological and grief counseling, financial assistance, visa and passport support, and much more. In addition, legal support. And we're going to continue to offer our twice daily briefings to the families, and we just completed our morning session before this conference. These sessions have been vital to assisting families to understand the nature of this search, the nature of the entire enterprise. And this is so, so important as we proceed daily on our search and rescue efforts, to have them fully aware of every step
me,
of the process.
The same thing
please,
almost we're hearing every day.
Join with me in your prayers, your wishes. Urbano trabajando y también estacioné ayer cambios.
That's the other thing too. The weather's been pretty bad. It's been raining. Anybody that's here in Florida, I mean, it's not crazy, but it's been raining a lot on and off throughout the day. This morning, like I woke up, it was thundering. That's how I woke up this morning. Just a lot of like thunder right above me. And so it's just been, I can imagine too, it's not looking good, man. Things are pretty grim. This is what, day 6 now? It's not good, man. Things are not looking good. I couldn't understand why families are like getting upset and pissed off. And I mean,
que deben realizar para que esto no les informe la ley.
Under the leadership of the mayor, Miami-Dade County is coordinating a unified search.
I'm just skimming through this. The real information is going to be the stuff that I'm going to share with you now, as far as some of the history and the recent letter just this year, a couple months back, that was sent saying that things had gotten worse with this building. There's definitely going to have to be some people that are responsible for this. It seems like neglect on the building, you know?
Rescue and assistance efforts.
Thank you,
consisting of multiple county departments, such as Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, Miami-Dade Police Department, Water and Sewer, Durham, ISD, County Attorney's Office, and much others. In addition to our federal, state, local, international, and not-for-profit organizations. This has led to a seamless integration of these resources throughout the event. We continue to prosper and utilize these agencies, up to 60 at this time, and over 800 responders who are supporting this effort, integrating into our unified response and ensuring
an on-site response efforts. Those 440 do include the State Emergency Response Team led mutual aid search and rescue teams. We continue to provide assistance through items such as a laundry trailer, as restroom trailers, shower trailers, jackhammers, buckets, air compressors, and many, many more. The Florida Division of Emergency Management Logistics Team will continue to support all resource requests. As of this morning, we have 29 individuals who have registered with FEMA's Individual Assistance Program. Currently, there are 22 organizations that are assisting. I want to go ahead and let you know that FEMA has advised me through the administrator that Virginia Task Force 1, Virginia Task Force 2, and Ohio Task Force 1 are on standby awaiting any type of resource requests that we may need. Again, I think it's appropriate to reiterate Mayor Cava's point that we have all the resources we need. We do not need anyone to self-deploy and help us. We have plenty of resources in reserves, ready to respond. The Florida Department of Transportation, as you've seen the dump trucks this morning, have started to assist with moving debris to an alternate site, and they will continue to do so. The Florida Department of Management Services continues to search without any hesitation.
Further, he would talk to the higher ups. There was frustration. There was a little anger. There were questions about why the work has to stop when there's rain, thunderstorms, and lightning. The police chief or the fire chief addressed that issue and said that he would talk to the higher ups about whether or not that worked, because it was an interesting comment, because the speaker said they're already risking their lives anyway. They're working under a building that could fall down. Why do we have to stop for lightning?
So I guess they were stopping when lightning and rain, which was happening this morning, and frankly throughout the entire week or lately here in South Florida.
It was an interesting question, and the chief said he would get back to them. One of the other questions by the family members was, how long can people survive under the rubble? Which was an excellent question, and there didn't seem to be a good answer to that. I had several days ago sent Mayor Cava a copy of an article that I was sent, which dealt exactly with that point. And I thought it was very important to let the family members know, so I stood up and I talked about what I knew from the article. And it talked about, there were several different instances, but the most notable was the one from May 2013, where a woman was pulled from the ruins of a factory in Bangladesh 17 days after it collapsed.
Wow.
So I think, as the governor said earlier, nobody, and the lieutenant governor, nobody's giving up hope here. Nobody's stopping. The work goes on, full force. We're dedicated to get everyone out of that pile of rubble and reunite them with their families. We have all the resources we want. I've been saying this since the beginning. We don't have a resource problem. We have a luck problem. And as you know, we just got dumped on by some rain. But thankfully, it looks like that's clearing. But the work will go on. We will continue to work at 100%. Thank you.
Champa, thank you for the sub.
Thank you, Mayor. And for the Board of County Commissioner Chairman, Honorable Jose Diaz.
Thank you, Elvis. As you all know, the mayor, the governor, lieutenant governor, and all that are involved already said the particulars. I simply want to say thank you to all of you for doing disaster. Thank them. Said a toda la prensa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Chief Alan Comiskey.
Just trying to skim through because a lot of repetitive.
Good afternoon. We continue to search the grid layer by layer, removing debris as we continue to move forward in our search and rescue efforts. As we mentioned before, this is a very tedious effort. It's devastating what occurred in regards to the collapse and what we're seeing. We're moving debris piece by piece and searching through. We moved over approximately 3 million pounds of concrete at this time, which equates to over 850 cubic feet. We have all the state Florida task forces here deployed. We have a federal task force on standby, as well as had the federal incident support team arrive today. Again, extremely difficult. Just when we first arrived and what we saw, the horrific, catastrophic type of collapse. Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, we were able during that time frame to remove 37 individuals. 37 individuals. And we continue searching with all our assets and all our support assets. All the task forces here in Florida, as well as the federal on standby, and we will continue to move through. I want to emphasize when we started this search, it's extremely difficult to what we saw, what we encountered. We deployed our search teams based on what we evaluated and what we saw in regards to highest probability. And as we've been mentioning time and time again with our searches, those are the key things we look for. Constantly running with our canines, our live dogs, searching for hope of life. Using different audible equipment, as well as video equipment, searching for life. That's what we've been doing from the get-go. And then we reevaluate and keep assessing. As we mentioned in regards to the grids, how we have it deployed now with our large equipment that's here and all our different task force. 24 hours a day, we have over 200 task force members made up of Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, Florida Task Force 1, and then all the remaining Florida task force. Non-stop, around the clock, searching. It's a methodical, very difficult process. You know, as we're removing debris, we're just finding more debris that's just concrete pulverized. You know, it's extremely difficult. As we mentioned in regards to looking through void spaces, looking for key signs. I want to be clear.
Thanks,
we haven't been seeing those. You know, we come across small and we keep moving. We keep moving. We keep trying. From the get-go, from what we saw, devastating. Okay, but we continue moving forward and continue pushing. And we'll see if we, you know, where we're at the end. Thank you.
That was kind of true. It gotta be frustrating. If it was
Thank you,
me,
Chief. And
like
now
my
to give
family,
some comments in Spanish.
I'd probably be tired of all the talking.
They-
You just need one person to say it. That's it.
9 open Harding Avenue. En español.
Fact finder, la academia.
If not through the primary, which is the first time we go through, it's our secondary search. So we search through there as well. Obviously, we're looking for live victims, individuals. But obviously, if we come across a pet, we would move them as well. We haven't. So we didn't come across any animals as we went through any types of pets during our primary and secondary, so we know that part of it's been searched. Other than that, you know, that's all I can confirm in regards to any possible events.
Because there's many more to get to.
Well, the fact
that you can't access now.
The fact that we went through on our primary and secondary, we would have came across.
You want to say the building?
Thank you, Chief.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Yes, and another aspect, you know, when we went through there, the building itself, again, in our line of work is fire rescue professionals, Miami-Dade firefighters. Again, the first unit on scene. As a fire chief, I couldn't be prouder. When I look to see what we did, and even now, and I got here probably about 45 minutes into the incident, and when I see what we put ourselves in, wow. You know, the rescue efforts that we did, all within that same footprint.
Life
All right.
and in her grandkids' life. And I think that the life that she led and
All right, let's move on to the other information because it's very kind of repetitive a little bit. But let's talk about some of the more recent, well, that is recent, but some of the other bits of interesting information, like this New York Post article that says developers of doomed Florida tower were once accused of paying off officials report. So let me close that out. The developers of the Miami condo tower that collapsed were once accused of paying off local officials to get permits for the site, which needed $15 million in repairs just to bring it to code, a new report says. Building rivals claim that partners behind Surfside Champlain Towers South were receiving preferential treatment when it came to getting through the permit system as the site was being built in 1981. Surfside developers who had contributed to the campaigns of at least 2 town council members then demanded that the donations be returned when the allegations surfaced, according to the outlet. Meanwhile, a 12-story tower had been on the verge of undergoing $15 million in renovations to pass a required 40-year certification, which when it collapsed Thursday, killing at least 9 people, but now I believe it's 11 confirmed. The developers behind the project had included Nathan, a Polish-born Canadian who was also once charged of tax evasion and cited for legal misconduct in Canada, the report said. Reber, who died in 2014, had been charged with tax evasion by Canadian authorities in the 1970s when he and his partners were accused of skimming cash from apartment buildings they owned. They allegedly skimmed tens of thousands of dollars from coin-operated laundry machines in the buildings and pocketed about $120,000 from phony construction checks, the Washington Post said. Authorities later issued an arrest warrant for Reber when he fled to Florida. In 1984, Reber, a lawyer, was cited for professional misconduct by the Law Society of Upper Canada for evading tax, or the tax evasion case, the paper said. He ultimately settled the case by returning to Canada and paying $60,000 in fine. In Florida, Reber and his partners were initially unable to begin construction of the condo buildings due to the 1979 moratorium over faulty sewers. The developers agreed to pay half of the $400,000 tab for the sewer repairs on the property and were given the green light, sparking anger from rival developers whose projects remained stalled by the moratorium. The rivals complained that Reber and his team got preferential treatment. The following year, the Champlain developers, who asked 2 local council members to return their campaign contributions amid accusations that the company had paid off the officials to get permits. Nonetheless, Reber was given the key to the city once the project was done, according to his obituary, after he died from cancer. Reber's widow and 2 of his children did not return calls to the Washington Post. 2 other firms, consulting engineers, Biederman, I think, and Associates, and architects William and Associates, were involved in the construction of the site. Manuel told the Washington Post that his side of the firm handled electrical and mechanical work, while Biederman handled structural work. Soterio, the principal with the wing of the company, died in the 1990s. A former vice president of the architectural firm said that the design of the Champlain Towers was handled by William Friedman, who died in 2018. It was his project, not mine. Everybody's pointing the finger everywhere. When I joined the company, the building was already constructed. I don't know anything about it. In 2018, the condos were cited for major structural damage by a consulting firm hired by the Buildings Association. Engineer Frank Morabito said a main issue was poor drainage of a pool deck that sat atop the parking garage at the site, which we've heard multiple times. Failure to replace waterproofing in the near future will cause the extent of the concrete deterioration to expand exponentially. According to the Washington Post, Morabito told the condo association that the work would cost $15 million and that the association did not respond for 18 months. The first phase of work, consisting of roof repairs, had already begun when the large parts of the building collapsed at 1:30 Thursday. Now, the city of Surfside, they hired, one of the people they're hiring anyway, is this guy named Alan Kilshimer, if I'm saying that right. He's a supposed world-leading engineer to consult the oceanfront town as they examine the cause of the building collapse that's killed several residents and left hundreds unaccounted for. He has 50 years of experience. He examined the Pentagon after the 9/11 attack, the FIU pedestrian bridge collapse, the Miami-Dade College garage collapse, and partial collapse of Charles de Gaulle Airport in France. On Saturday, the city officials toured the collapsed site and saw no visible evidence of any major structural concern, the city of Surfside said. The walkthrough included a slab on grade columns and the underside of the first elevated floor in the below ground garages, Surfside added, noting that the tour was limited to observable and exposed areas. So it was just like a preliminary walkthrough, and he didn't notice anything, I guess, really. Speaking on Sunday, Meet the Press, Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela said that she was hopeful that the collapse was an anomaly rather than a failure of building code. They just want it to be a natural disaster. She also defended the state's building code as a very strong when asked if older nearby buildings should be inspected. Still, she's ordered the audit of all buildings 40 years and older in the area. Meanwhile, the Champlain North Tower, the structure which collapsed, plans to hire their own engineering firm to further investigate. Okay. Meanwhile, the Champlain North Tower, the structure which collapsed, it's the South Tower that collapsed, though. I don't know. Is that confusing there? South Tower collapsed. Let me close this a little bit. And this is just kind of more on the same thing. This is the guy that they hired. This is what he looks like, just kind of a picture. He was reportedly hired by the town of Surfside to study the deadly condo, the Champlain Towers. Workers searched the rubble of the Champlain Towers South Condo. It's the south one that collapsed. As our consultation is in progress, we will, when needed, perform an in-depth evaluation of the causes of the collapse based on the information supplied. The contract states, the Herald reported. On Saturday, Kilsheimer toured the limited observable and exposed areas of the underground garages of the Champlain Towers East and North. These are the sister buildings. So he went and checked out the other buildings. And he said he saw no visible evidence of any major structural concern, according to a town paper release. And we just read about his career and stuff. Now, the sister buildings. Was this something to play? Let me check this out real quick. It's a voluntary evacuation. Let's see if there's anything with this. Why I had this up. A resident of the East Tower said a crack appeared after the collapse was determined to be structurally safe, but he said he wants engineers to take a closer look.
Sister buildings just to the north of where we are right now. Steve?
And there are concerns, Carlos. You're right. Lots of eyes on this one, not just because of the tragedy, but because you have thousands of people along the shoreline here and living in high rises inland paying attention as well. They're looking to take something away from this, maybe a learning event and a sense of security that their buildings are structurally sound. Robert Lissman, living in Champlain Towers East, the sister building to the tower that partially collapsed, and showing us a crack in his building that he says was caused by the concussion of the collapse.
I have concerns, but I'm not panicking. I know that there are things that we need to address and look at, but there's no imminent threat. Like I'm in your building. You're confident in your building. Confident in my building in the east. And
that's going to kind of surprise me. I don't know how anybody could be confident if you know the same developers worked on your building and you see these cracks and stuff and you're like, yeah, I'm confident everything's fine. How the hell, after a huge ass building collapse, I'm confident everything's fine. No, it's cool.
But there's no imminent threat. Like I'm in your building. You're confident in your building. Confident in my building in the east, in Champlain Towers East.
South Florida's coast is dotted with high rise.
I have concerns, but I'm not panicking. I know that there are things that we need to address and look at, but there's no imminent threat. Like I'm in your building. You're confident in your building. Confident in my building in the east, in Champlain Towers East.
South Florida's coast is dotted with high-rise buildings, with some people seeing what happened to this building and now asking, are they safe in their oceanfront units, towering some 40, even 50 stories tall?
We don't have a resource problem, as I've said. We have a luck problem.
Surfside's Mayor Charles Burkett says the two other Champlain Towers are now getting attention.
I have instructed our staff to grab every shred of information related to that building and the other two that we're sort of tangentially working on, get it scanned and put it up on our website. You know, that's going to be what it's going to be.
Within the last 5 days, the safety of high-rise buildings has become an issue, with elected officials, industry experts, and others calling for more frequent inspections. Lissman noting how condo associations have a tremendous responsibility.
Their decisions have life and death consequences. And so when I'm told that there's nothing to worry about, it's trust but verify.
Sure, I'm not trusting nothing after all this shit. Trust but verify. What? This is some of the neighboring buildings worry about the safety after Florida condo collapse. A sister building in the same complex as collapsed Florida condo has new cracks in its garage, but experts said residents are safe even as a voluntary evacuation is in effect. Don't need to have the music done. Photos which aired on WPTV which show damage to a sister building. Let's get a bigger screen. Of the collapsed Florida condo left some residents worried about their safety. Isn't this the same type of thing that was in the building that collapsed? Why wouldn't people be concerned? But experts say they aren't in danger of suffering the same fate. While a resident reportedly said the photos revealed damage which emerged after the Champlain South Tower collapsed. So some of the damage came after the collapse. That would be kind of concerning to me. Meanwhile, as they search and recovery efforts continue at the Champlain Towers South, officials are investigating what red flags may have been missed. So check this out. I thought this was interesting too. I found this yesterday, and this is a couple that's staying at the North Tower, because there's the North Tower and there's a South Tower. Well, the South collapsed. So, but there's the North and then there's the East. This is the East. I'm kind of wondering, let me see if I can find it real quick. Where is the North? North Champlain. See if I can find it. Champlain Towers. Pull it up real quick. North. There we go. Oh, okay. For some reason it wasn't showing up right there, but this is so you guys get a full visual. Okay. Let me hide the chat for a second. So this is where the collapse happened, okay. That's the South. Then we got the East Champlain Tower condo here. And then this is supposed to be the North. For some reason it's not, the name's not popping up. But when I typed it in, this is considered the North one. All right. So this couple explains why they aren't leaving the sister tower of collapsed condo. They're in the North Tower. Let's see.
Some residents of the Champlain Towers North building, that's the sister building to the one that collapsed, are understandably growing very, very anxious. So both buildings are almost identical. They were both built right around the same time. Inspections of the North building began over the weekend. They are ongoing right now. Philip Zine and Nora Zine are residents of the Champlain North Tower. They're with me right now. Philip, Nora, thank you very much for joining us. And I know you know people who live in the South Tower. We'll discuss that in a moment. But let me start with you, Nora. How concerned are you? Because you're staying in your building right now, even though the mayor of Surfside has recommended, out of an abundance of caution, maybe for the time being, go someplace else.
I know. For some reason, I feel some kind of peace in our building. It's very well maintained. We've never had any problems. And I don't know. I just want to be home. And I believe we were told yesterday that it was okay. It was not mandatory. Our daughter and her husband and family want us to go there, but I don't know. I want to be here still.
Philip, how do you feel?
I feel fine. Obviously, I'm a little concerned. You always want to be a little concerned because you don't know. But as long as they do a thorough inspection, they bring in their engineers this week and next week and check everything out and make sure that everything is really safe and solid, then I'm not worried. I'll stay there because I believe our building is a nice building. It has been maintained very properly, and I don't believe it's the same condition as the South was.
Even though both buildings were built around the same time, basically on the same ground by the same construction company, so they're about the same age right now.
And the design is almost the same and everything, but that's why I say I'm concerned, but I'm not terribly worried until the inspections are completed.
Your kids are obviously much more worried than you guys.
I think so.
Are your neighbors staying, or are they leaving?
Some who are.
Some have left already?
Some have left, but some are still there because, I mean, they've been there all their lives, practically from the time it was built, like maybe, 40. In
the early 80s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought that was like interesting. I chalk it up to, a lot of times elderly people, they don't want to leave the situation, even if the place is falling apart. There was a story that I think Evelyn was telling us yesterday. We were talking on Discord, and there was like this, I think, an elderly couple. I don't know if it was Florida. There was this mandatory evacuation. I don't know if it was Florida. I don't know where it was. And the couple, they didn't want to leave, and so they gave them like a radio or something, some way to communicate, or I don't know if it was a phone or radio. And the place started flooding, and they ended up having to go into the roof, and I guess they were listening to them and they were talking to them when they died because the whole place got flooded and stuff. So some people they'll just stay in their situation, But this one too, this is somewhat interesting because this is the wife that called the husband as the place collapsed. It says here, new harrowing details are emerging. Yeah, better screen. The chat. Are emerging about the moment the building in Miami collapsed. Resident Cassie Stratton frantically called her husband at 1:30 a.m. and told him the building's pool was collapsing. Then the phone went dead. Stratton, a model, is among 151 residents still missing. Her chilling last words appear to confirm theories that the collapse began at ground level and not from the top down. So let's check this clip out here. I'm going to have to, I don't want them to claim the video. So just to try to avoid that.
They're emerging about the moment the building collapsed. Condo resident Cassie Stratton frantically called her husband at 1:30 a.m. and told him the building's pool, where this video was shot, was collapsing. The phone went dead. Cassie, a model who posted this video from her fourth-floor apartment soon after moving in, is among the 151 residents still missing. Her chilling last words appear to confirm theories that the collapse began at ground level and not from the top down. Rescuers are using everything from dogs to drones today to help find survivors who may be trapped alive in any number of small voids underneath the rubble. But after 5 days, time is running out.
You don't know how anybody could survive that. I mean, there's miracles. You want to believe in a miracle.
120 rescuers are working grueling 12-hour shifts. Families of the missing made a poignant pilgrimage to the site Sunday. Relatives of missing student Nicole Langsfeld were heard screaming her name in a futile attempt to locate her. They also saw firsthand rescuers risking their lives.
They witnessed a rescuer tumble 25 feet down the mountain.
In the wake of the collapse, several residents are evacuating an identical building nearby.
We may have some of the same defects that existed in the building that collapsed. But of course, we don't know that until we get a full structural engineer to go in there and make an evaluation.
And we're hearing harrowing experiences of residents who did manage to escape.
If I'm one more apartment closer to the ocean, I'm dead.
Steve Rosenthal lived on the 7th floor and was plucked from his balcony by a firefighter on a cherry picker. He took this photo as he waited to be rescued.
We're up there waiting for fire rescue for maybe an hour and a half, not knowing if the building is going to collapse.
Wow. Yeah, if you guys wouldn't mind hitting like, I'd appreciate that. Helps the stream. Also, Eden, I saw your email today. I replied, but write me back when you have a chance so I can understand a little bit, because I was a little, I felt like there wasn't enough information and I was trying to understand what you were trying to tell me. So write me back when you have a chance. Somebody asked me too if I've been out there to the site. I haven't. I don't know what it's like out there. I pulled up like an image, a map that's I found online, and a lot of those roads are blocked off from what I see, and only residents are allowed in. Because I did want to go myself and see it in person, and I thought I could bring the camera with me just to give an upfront, close and personal look, but I don't think they're letting people get close. I also thought it might be interesting to actually talk to some of the people out there, some of the residents, maybe do interviews or something, just, because with the news clips, everything's kind of chopped up and it's edited, and it's just very, for news consumption, you don't really get the full, there's been some full interviews, but you don't get the full thing. This is just a brief story too, real quick, that we'll touch on before we keep moving on, because we still got to get into these documents. That was less than 3 months ago that they were saying things had gotten worse since 2018, since that 2018 inspection. Okay, so this is just another one of those stories where somebody narrowly survived. Somebody could have been killed just by making one decision, just one of those things in life. Had you done something differently or whatever, you would have been dead. And so with this situation, he was I guess he was at his girlfriend's house, and he was going to come back to the building. He was going to come back home. Let me see. What is it here? Okay, let's just read it. Eric should have been sleeping inside his Champlain South Tower apartment when the 130 unit condominium building collapsed early Thursday morning. Instead, the 40-year-old Brazil native told Reuters that his girlfriend's powers of persuasion are the reason the couple was drifting off to sleep less than 2 miles from the engineering disaster that claimed at least 11 lives. It's a very sad moment, very confusing. It's very tough to get in touch with my emotions right now. Specifically, Demora told Reuters that his plan was, like most weeknights, had been to leave Fernando's home after dinner with friends while watching soccer match, followed by a pickup game. That night was unusual. I was going to leave Fernando's house to go home and take a shower and die. Instead, his girlfriend insisted that he stay and threw his clothes soaked after he retrieved a soccer ball from a canal in the backyard in the dryer while he showered there. Demora then woke up several hours later to a missed call and text from Rochelle, a doorman supervisor from the Champlain Towers South in nearby Surfside, Florida, asking if he was okay and explaining the chaos that he had averted. I had goosebumps. My heart was pounding. I got dressed and rushed to the building. And that's kind of just a brief story with that. Now, with this one, this is another family, that's making a plea. And also this guy, William, he's looking for his aunt. He's pretty upset. Thought it was kind of interesting what they had to say.
And all the family, they were in 10
And this is from Miami Herald.
His name is Pettengil. Pettengil. And if you find, please call me if you know anything. 786-970-4000. My name is Juby, please. They came yesterday for vacation. And to celebrate her birthday.
Which ones?
Her birthday, Sophia's birthday.
Oh, Lord.
Sophia is my daughter's age 36.
Okay.
And, we're missing them.
Rubble's on the side. The building's over here. You can go into that rubble and see if there's survivors in there. You see it all the time on the news when there's huge catastrophes, but nobody's working on that rubble right now. We should get some. I just told the governor and I told the mayor, and they said, oh yeah, there's people on the other side. I said, no, we're standing there. Nobody's doing it. I'm hoping that we find people alive in that rubble somewhere there, that we not avoid approaching the area because it might be a little dangerous right now. There might be live people under the rubble, so we should get in there and look for it. I woke up and saw it, and I can't believe what's happening is happening. But I really wish that our elected officials would do more about looking for survivors.
And so we're kind of to the document phase now. Let me get a better view here. So we're going to look at this in a second. The document, the Bidens, they're coming on Thursday to visit the site. This is a pretty interesting picture. You can see, this is a really great picture that they took. You can see, like, this is the side facing the beach. We're going to skip past some of that because we're going to read the document. This is a video too. They're just showing some of the work that's being done on site. There's the dogs too, the search dogs. That looks like, this almost looks like, are you ready to do it for the camera? Ready? Okay, let's do it. Ready for the shot? I don't know, I'm just saying that, but it's a lot there, man. It's a lot of rubble. This one has a little bit of information. Oh, this was a really interesting audio podcast by I don't know who this was. Was this I think this was NY Times. We can listen to some of this. It's a little long, but after we do the document, we can listen to some of that because I thought it was kind of interesting. I listened to a few minutes. Just kind of see the damage. This one also has some information about the people and some pictures of people that are deceased. Let me just start it back. So this is Stacy Don Fang, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday too, some of these people, but this kind of puts a picture to the face. Gladys and Antonio Lozano, Luis Andres Bermudez and Ana Ortiz, Manuel Lafont. That's just some of it. But a little bit of information about the people. Stacy Fang, 54, was the first victim identified in the condo collapse. She was the mother of Jonah Handler, a 15-year-old boy who was pulled alive. Some of you guys might remember that. That was from the first stream. And you remember, I think it was yesterday, I was telling you guys that supposedly the mother passed away. And so here's more confirmation. I thought I read somewhere that she passed away in the hospital. I don't know. He was pulled alive from the rubble in a dramatic rescue as he begged rescuers, please don't leave me. Antonio Lozano, 83, and Gladys Lozano, 79, were confirmed dead by Mr. Lozano's nephew, Phil Farrell. The chief meteorologist on WSVN Channel 7 in Miami, Mr. Farrell, wrote on Instagram, they were such beautiful people, may they rest in peace. Luis Andres Bermudez, 26, lived with his mother, Ana Ortiz. Okay, mother and son, 46. Mr. Bermudez's father confirmed his son's death on social media, writing in Spanish, Milio, you gave me everything. I will miss you all of my life. We'll see each other soon. I'll never leave you alone. Manuel Lafont, 54 years old, was a businessman who worked with Latin American companies. His former wife, Adriana Lafont, described him as the best dad. Mr. Lafont's son and daughter, 13, were with Miss Lafont when the building collapsed. And what I don't know if it's this story, but I think I read previously, I think it was him, that I believe she had just picked up her son or something like that from the father from that building or recently. And so he, the kids weren't with him. And, that's when everything happened. I think that's what I read. Leon and Christina, 80 and 74, were from Venezuela and had recently moved to Surfside, according to the Shabadinfo.com, which said they were active in the Orthodox Jewish community in Greater Chicago, where their daughter lives. Sorry, I'm having trouble there. Also killed in the collapse were Marcus Joseph Guerrero, 52, Frank Kleiman, 55, and Michael David Altman, 50. And there's just a bunch of these, things going on, like makeshift memorials, photos, roses, pictures, posters. They were doing vigils out there too. I think I actually pulled this up here. But they're doing like vigils out there. People gathering. I think this is on the beach. Oh yeah, let me play what this guy had to say.
There's hope. I really believe miracles to happen. Things like this have happened around the world, and forces, Israeli forces, Mexican forces, the best teams are put on this mission right now, and I truly believe.
So it's kind of crazy, man. So there's a lot going on. This was Monday. More than 100 people gathered for a beach vigil on Monday night to commemorate victims and those who are still missing after last week's condo collapse near Miami. Here's some more images too. Just high quality images to kind of show them out there. Miami Beach has canceled its Independence Day celebrations on Sunday out of respect for the victims of the collapsed condo. And so now I think let's get to the document. What I'm going to do is just remind me, I'm going to go back here to the audio podcast, so maybe we can listen to a little bit of it after I get through this document, which I thought it was that little podcast was kind of insightful. Now, this is the document. Like I was telling you guys, I'm going to read a couple of pages. Bear with me. If you want the link to this entire thing, I'll post it on Facebook. I'll share it on Facebook. But this is like a breakdown, I guess, of the costs and expenses, because they were charging the residents there for the expenses. And so this is what they came up with, like a sheet and just all this stuff. So if you want to look at this breakdown, I'll share the link on Facebook. And this is from the New York Times. It says, less than 3 months ago, before the collapse of the Champlain Towers South Condo complex, the president of the Condominium Association warned in a letter that the damage in the building had gotten significantly worse since it was highlighted in a 2018 inspection. So this is even more recently, obviously, than 2018, just a couple months ago. And so it says here, dear neighbors, many of the questions coming to the office ahead of next week's special meeting to discuss the proposed special assessment of $15 million are not specifically related to the special assessment. We have received questions pertaining to the need for the work, the engineer's estimates, the 20% contingency, financial oversight of construction expenses, and the like. These are all good questions, and all of them have been discussed and presented over the past year so many times. All the presentations and meeting minutes are available in the Concierge Plus for your review. The purpose of next week's meeting is only to discuss the proposed special assessment. This seems a good moment to give a summary of our progress to date so that we can focus on the special assessment itself at the meeting. As this work has become so all-consuming for us, the summary could perhaps be called a report on the state of the building. So we're going to read, let me see. There was it's a lot here. I don't know that we're going to read all of this. But there is a conclusion as well. Okay. So let's start at the top. The 40-year-old building inspection is required by law and covers life/safety issues such as structural and electrical. An engineer, Frank Morabito, was hired in 2018 due to an inspection of the building and provided an initial estimate of what would be required in terms of the 40-year inspection, which comes due later this year. Among other things, that estimate indicated that the concrete damage observed would begin to multiply exponentially over the years. So they know about the damage and that it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And indeed, the observable damage, such as the garage, has gotten significantly worse. This is the main thing of, the article. Since its initial inspection, when you can visually see the concrete spalling, cracking, that means that the rebar holding it together is rusting and deteriorating beneath the surface. Please know that the original scope of the work in the 2018 report has expanded. The concrete deterioration is accelerating. The roof situation got much worse, so extensive roof repairs had to be incorporated. Other previously identified projects have been rolled under the main project. New problems have been identified. Also, costs go up every year. This is how we have gone from the estimated 9 million cited in the Frank Morabito's 2018 report to a much larger figure we have today. A committee is formed to evaluate possible supervising engineers to oversee this work. The committee recommended Frank Morabito as the engineer. Morabito was selected as our engineer by the board in 2019. A manager with 40-year experience and engineering background was hired, Scott Stewart. The above work was accomplished over a 2-year period through several different boards. The process continued with the current board. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. An initial exploration of the concrete and driveway soffit. This was a bid out and done last year. In addition, all balconies were checked and loose stucco and concrete knocked off the building were observed for safety reasons. It was also found that a firewall is missing between the lobby and the front driveway, which must be put in. The firewall is an example of a new issue not identified in the original, more general 40-year assessment in 2018. Roof repair and OSHA roof anchor placement. These are tiebacks and safety line points for people on the scaffolding and are required. This work will begin in the next few weeks. It includes other previously identified and necessary work, such as AC disconnects, electrical on the roof, and exhaust fans. The anchors will remain in place permanently and can be used by window washers or with future scaffolding if we do other projects. A moisture survey was done to evaluate the roof last year, showing the need for extensive repairs for most efficient project management and to contain certain costs. Value engineering. The roof was rolled under Morabito's supervision. The roof is part of the 40-year inspection. And it's a lot. It's a whole bunch. What I'm gonna do, let's see here. I think is get to the conclusion. And I'll post the link because it's a whole bunch. We'll be here forever reading this stuff. So, okay. In conclusion, so here's the amount here, the 15 mil. In conclusion, for those who wanted a better understanding of the projects, I hope this helps. For those who believe we are assessing too much, this shows that we are actually under assessing a bit according to estimates. For those who wanted to understand what we're doing with current funds, hopefully this is clearer now. For everyone, I acknowledge that we are talking about a huge project and a very large assessment. Your board of directors is working very hard to bring this project to fruition. We have consulted with our professionals, engineering, CPA, and attorneys with regard to what needs to be repaired and how much it will cost and how to finance it. There are many moving parts to this project. We have covered so much ground already to get the project rolling. It's not surprising everyone is still asking about those items. Everything reviewed in this letter has been publicly presented, discussed, and voted on as necessary. We have discussed, debated, and argued for years now, and we will continue to do so for years to come as different items come into play. Other than the future meeting dates, none of this information is new. My hope was to provide a relatively quick summary document to avoid having to constantly search the website for information. I have attached copies of the project estimate, hallway estimate, engineers, contracted fees, and the January 2021 balance sheet for your reference. So I'll post the link to this. So for whoever wants to like look in depth, but these are like all the costs and estimates. You know, but the gist of it is that there was more damage since the 2018 incident. Now I'll play a little bit of this little podcast here that we can listen to. I thought it was good, and then we'll call it. On the Google Maps video I saw, you can see that they had to reinforce the barrier by the pool next to the new building. Let's play this.
13-story building.
Later, 150 people are still missing. I spoke with my colleague, Miami Bureau Chief Patty Mazzei. It's Tuesday, June 29th.
It came out today.
Hey, Patty.
Hey.
Are you in your car?
Yes, I am, and it's actually raining pretty hard right now.
And where exactly are you right now in your car?
I am a few blocks south of the Champlain Towers.
And by the way, I'm going to be looking for little updates too as we listen to this. There's already a lawsuit that was started, a $5 million lawsuit. It says Surfside, but this is by the Hill. Surfside building residents file another lawsuit against the condo association, which I think there's going to be probably several lawsuits at least that come from all this.
Building that collapsed. There's a lot of road closures. They've sort of expanded them as the days have gone by. So every day we've been able to get less close to the building.
See, and that's what I'm saying about people asking, have I been out there? I hear all that stuff is being blocked off. So.
And can you describe, I don't know if you can see it from your car, but can you describe the state of the towers right now, what they look like?
Imagine a 13-story building with more than 130 units that has had about half of it sheared off and just crumbled into the ground. It's a jumble by the beach side of concrete and metal and furniture, and you can see straight into these exposed apartments, frozen in time, people's homes, their beds, their office chairs, their linens just sticking out and waving in the wind, with the whole recovery operation around them and the big cranes and the rescue workers everywhere.
Well, that's what we really want to talk to you about, because it has now been 4 full days since the collapse. We're talking to you on Monday afternoon, and it feels like a central question in this unfolding tragedy is why the pace of finding people has been so slow. So can you help us understand why recovering the missing has been taking so long?
You know, at the beginning, it wasn't so slow. They were able to rescue some people. This building partly collapsed at around 1:30 in the morning on Thursday. And one of the first things that we know happened was that people who were still out in the street at that time nearby rushed over to see, and they heard a boy screaming. And they saw his hand sticking out from the rubble, his fingers wriggling in the air. And they tried to climb the rubble in flip-flops in the middle of the night themselves to try to help him.
Wow.
Eventually, they were able to flag down a police officer and a firefighter to actually get the kid out, and he was saved. We also know that rescue crews later were able to help 2 other people, a mother and a daughter, who had been in the 9th floor when the collapse happened and somehow tumbled down to the 5th floor.
Wow.
And the mother suffered various fractures and was somehow able to find her daughter despite being seriously injured. And they found those 2 women and sent them to the hospital. After that, though, things did get a lot slower. You're right.
And why?
There's basically 2 issues. One is just the nature of this rescue and of this collapse. And the other is the conditions that the workers are living through on the ground in the depths of the Miami summer. So, first of all, part of this building stayed up But more than half of these more than 130 units pancake down on each other, leaving an unstable pile of concrete and rebar and metal and furniture and debris.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the weather. In June in Miami, it's incredibly hot and humid, but also there have been rolling thunderstorms in the days of rescue. The lightning sometimes means a delay in the rescue for the safety of the workers. The rain just makes the conditions harder for them to work in. And they have been facing fires within the structure that they have to try to put out for their own safety and sometimes delay putting out for their own safety, because if they put these high-pressure water hoses on the fire, they add a lot of weight and pressure to the structure that is unstable.
So given those two factors you just described, how exactly are they going about trying to find these dozens of missing people?
After they did an initial sweep floor by floor of what was left of the building to make sure there weren't people there, they figured out that the likeliest place for people to have maybe survived in what they call voids, which are empty spaces that form sometimes when buildings fall down, was towards the bottom of the wreckage. So they tried to tunnel in through what was left of the parking garage, and they drilled and shored up the concrete so that workers could go in there. Those conditions were also difficult because there was flooding. And so they were wading through thigh-deep water in some cases, in the dark, trying to listen with specialized equipment for signs of life. In a particularly horrible scene, we know that on Thursday, they briefly heard the sounds of what they thought was a woman's voice.
Oh, wow.
But they stopped hearing it shortly after, and they didn't rescue anybody.
And how does that work? How are they actually able to try to hear these potential survivors?
We know that at these sites, one of the things they do is call for quiet, for silence, when they are sort of pushing through and then trying to listen. They're not just looking for voices, they're looking for other signs of life, which can include someone tapping or scratching or twisting metal or trying to move around to try to get the attention of rescuers. So they have listening devices and sonar devices and video cameras that they probe through holes to try to see their way through.
Mm-hmm.
After they tried that approach and they did not rescue anybody, then they started moving towards the top of the pile. They had brought in the heavy machinery by then. They don't clear big pieces of debris until they have cleared a section at a time to make sure that there are no remains there. So you can imagine the sort of painstaking process this is. Eventually, they were able to dig a sort of trench, cutting through, demarcating the wreckage so that they could keep track of where they had been and where they had not been. And that's where you see this cross-section of what were once floors of the building. And it's really striking because there is so little space between the slabs that were once the floor and the ceiling, and the floor and the ceiling. And we're now talking of maybe a couple of feet, maybe less, between each one.
So what used to be regular-sized apartments are now separated by a foot or two.
Yes.
And the idea is that possibly people are stuck between those.
Unfortunately, as horrifying as that is, yes.
And Patty, have you been able to speak with any of the rescue workers?
I have, to a couple of them. They've brought in specialized groups that are really the experts at urban search and rescue. And families were frustrated at first because they wanted to make sure that absolutely everything was being done to find their loved ones, and they weren't sure that was the case. And so on Sunday, they actually gave the families who wanted it a chance to rotate in and out near the site to see it for themselves in private, without politicians, without reporters, to have a moment to witness the search and rescue, and also, in some cases, to grieve, to pray, to just reflect, so that they could see sort of this labyrinth that the workers are going through, and the hundreds of people that are working through this base camp and on the site to try to find, survivors or their remains. And now what the rescue workers say they're doing is trying to collect some of the keepsakes and personal items that they come across. They are finding artwork, jewelry, stuffed animals, and especially personal photos, family photos. And they're collecting them and bagging them so that the families can get them and at least have something that at the end of the day might really be the only keepsakes that some of these families get from their missing loved ones.
Speaking of the families, I'm curious if in your reporting you've heard stories about those who are missing that really stand out to you.
Well, among the people who have been confirmed dead are the parents of a girl I went to high school with. Just to give you an idea of how this touches the community to a very personal level, where most of us, or many of us, have sort of connections in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I remember picking my friend up in that building one summer, and going in through the back to towards the beach. So,
wow. I'm very sorry.
Thank you. It's people you sort of know indirectly, but it certainly keeps you up at night knowing how they're suffering. There's a family where we know the mother and the young daughter slept in the same bed, and their grandparents also lived with them, and their aunt was visiting them from Argentina, and all of them are missing. Just horrible story after horrible story. It's hard, to tell them all. We know that there was a young woman from Paraguay who was on her first trip outside of Paraguay to help her family make money, and she was working as a nanny, and she's missing.
It's a reminder that Miami and the Miami area is such an international place.
Yeah, this is really a slice of South Florida that living here you forget how unusual it is. But this is a building that had retirees and also young families. And there was a lot of South American families because they have long been present in this part of the country and had those apartments for decades and slowly, used them from vacation homes to now actually living in them. There is a strong Orthodox Jewish community here, and they had a lot of members from their congregations in this building. And I think that has just shown you what sort of diverse community lived there and has come together to help them and start to mourn them too.
This is a delicate question. But at this point, is there any expectation that people could have survived this many days in this condition of rubble that you just described?
They are still officially in search and rescue mode, which means they have not lost hope of finding somebody. But as the days and hours tick by, it's become increasingly clear, I think, that even if you get one miracle, you're not going to get 150 of them.
You can block that guy, the weirdo.
So what we're talking about at this point is a form of a mass grave in a way.
What the first responder told me was that bringing families to the site was important because this was the closest some of them were ever going to be to their loved ones again.
We'll be right back.
Verizon
the dozens of incredible colleagues at the Times have been reporting on a warning that was issued by a building expert and what did or did not happen as a result of that warning. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. So Miami-Dade County has a rule that buildings have to be recertified as structurally sound when they turn 40 years old. This building was built in 1981, so its review was coming due this year. But 3 years before the deadline, in 2018, the building hired a consultant to take a look at some of the problems in the building and just get them set up for this inspection that was coming up. And this engineer wrote up a report that found evidence of major structural damage, especially to some of the concrete in the slab holding up the pool deck. And there was cracking and crumbling of columns and beams and walls of the parking garage under the 13-story building. The report did not warned that there was going to be some sort of like catastrophic collapse of the building. But it did find that there was millions of dollars worth of repairs that needed to be done soon. And so someone from the condo board, which is the group of residents elected to run the building, sent it to the building official in the town of Surfside, according to emails released by the town, saying, we have this report. Would you meet with us to talk about it? And the records show that the building official did go in late 2018 to meet with the condo association to discuss the report.
Was that an obligation, or was this someone kind of blowing the whistle?
It's unclear, but what he reported back to town officials and what the condo association wrote down in the minutes of this meeting was that basically the building was in good shape. He did tell the town manager that even though the recertification of the building was not due until 2021, he was really happy that it was getting underway early and that he actually wished more buildings would do that too.
Huh. It feels from everything you're describing that this is a group of well-intentioned leaders in this building and local building official who are all trying to do things the right way.
Well, the issue is that after this report comes out and this meeting takes place, nothing immediately happens to get these repairs underway. There seems to be a period of time where they have to figure out how they're going to pay for this. We're talking about more than $9 million in repairs, according to the report. And we know that the building took out a $12 million line of credit to pay for it and had to issue a special assessment to unit owners to pay for this. And we're talking, $80,000 to $200,000 per unit.
Wow.
And there was pushback from some of the owners about having to pay this huge amount of money for this. And so all of these things happened after they knew that there were issues. They just apparently did not know how bad those issues were. And it is only now in the summer of 2021 that we know that roof repairs were beginning and starting to take place right before the building collapsed.
So 3 years after this report was written, warning of significant problems and repairs that were needed within the building, the major work had not yet begun when this building collapses.
As far as we can tell, yes.
And Patty, based on your reporting, does it seem that the way the building collapsed, the manner in which it fell, does that in any way point back to some of the factors and the deficiencies that this consultant pointed out 3 years ago?
What structural engineers have told us, based on video of the collapse and on this report from 2018, is that it is possible that something towards the bottom of the building is what led to this collapse. And that could be the concrete slab under the pool deck somehow caving in. We know that there was a woman on the phone who told her husband before the line went dead, right at the time of the collapse, that there was a sort of sinkhole happening on the pool deck by the garage.
Sinkhole.
And the video shows sort of that part coming down first and then bringing down the other part of the building that fell. And if there were structural problems towards the bottom of the building that were exposing metal to salty air and to water, we know from experts that corrosion in metal in buildings is like a cancer because it starts crumbling the concrete.
And did the consultant mention both of those things? Metal being exposed because the concrete had deteriorated and that concrete slab near the pool having problems.
One of the problems that the consultant found in 2018 was that the concrete slab where the pool was not waterproofed correctly in the original design of the building. And so that didn't allow the water to run off, and instead it would leak into the garage, which could cause long-term damage to the metal that holds up the concrete. This slab was above the parking garage that's sort of in the middle of the building with the 13 stories of apartments overlooking it and connected to it all. And so if, as one of these theories of what might have happened goes, there was in fact a sort of caving in
Oh.
at that point.
FX is it? What's let me see the name. FSX. No, I didn't know there was a video like that. I just did a little quick search. Miami Herald. Let me see if they have something. We'll pause it for a second. Chilling video from the inside Surfside Towers shows. Well, we've seen the outside one. Is this something different? Hold on a second. Let me see what this is.
Well, first.
Oh no, yeah. This is from Let me see. Yeah, this one I've seen. Yeah.
From the video, you can see that sort of pulls down the center part of the building, and then the sort of northern side of the building that faces the beach comes down right after.
Got it. Is anything else potentially at play here that you have found in your reporting?
We have been told by residents of the building that they were very concerned when another building was built nearby a few years ago, and they could almost feel shaking when that construction was taking place. So that was one concern.
Mm-hmm.
We know by a study from a Florida International University professor that that particular area of Surfside where that specific building was had been sinking a little bit, that he could detect in the study that he did. He cautioned that you don't know that that means a building is going to collapse, because buildings sort of sink in different parts of the world all the time. It doesn't mean that the building's going to fall in on itself. But there are certainly these other factors as they try to figure out like what went wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
It feels there's a lot that we don't quite know yet, but it feels like one thing that we did quickly learn from the story of this building's collapse is that a lot of the responsibility for evaluating the structural integrity of this building and dealing with it is really in the hands of its own residents, right? It's a story of self-policing. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the people who ran that condo board were probably not structural engineers, and they were not all architects. And so when they discover something's wrong, they're taking educated guesses about how quickly they need to act. And what looks in retrospect like a slow timetable might have seemed very reasonable to them. And I wonder if that's something you're finding in your reporting, that people are questioning just how much of this ended up being a decision made by the people who live in this building.
I think that's an important point, because what the residents have told us in our reporting is they think the question should go further back. Why wasn't the building better maintained before you got to the point in 2018 where you had a report telling you that you had major problems that were going to take millions of dollars to repair? There is a sister building a block away, built around the same time by the same builder with the same design, that has not had the same problems. And the residents of that building attribute that to just better upkeep over time.
So, Patty, what happens now with this building, with this rescue process, with potentially litigation and investigations?
Lawsuits are already being filed by residents against the condo board, and I imagine we will see more of that activity in the courts as the days go on. We have homicide detectives on the scene of the rescue.
Why homicide?
To collect evidence that might lead to eventual, if there is action in the criminal courts about these deaths. The Federal Emergency Management Agency is here to help the survivors relocate and find new places to live. So various things are going on at once, but the focus, according to all of the authorities, has to remain, for now, in finding the missing. And while they do that, they're going to put everything sort of on a secondary plane. And every day they're going to go in every 4 hours to the Grand Beach Hotel near the site, inside a ballroom, to try to give information to these families who are sort of gathered in silence as an official stands behind a microphone with an easel in the back and tries to tell them what progress has been made. And it's never a lot.
Well, think that's pretty much it, man. I checked for any little brief other updates that I could see. I don't see anything else currently. And I think we've covered a lot in this video and this live stream from the various articles and documents. So, but yeah, you know, thank you guys for coming through, man. Appreciate the support. If you wouldn't mind hitting like, we've almost been here 2 hours. If you wouldn't mind hitting like on the way out and subscribing, turning on the bell with notifications, I'd appreciate that. And oh yeah, that footage, we've seen it plenty of times already. I've played it before, the building collapse video. We played it a couple times already, but if you're talking about let me see, this one. Played that a few times already. Oh, great. Set me up. Set me up. Yeah, this one we've seen a couple of times. This is, you know, it's everywhere. Okay, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Just email me then, because I don't see anything else besides that. All right. Don't see anything else. So, yeah, email me, and if we have it, then I can play it on the next live stream. But I haven't seen anything else besides that. That's what's everywhere. So, I wonder how many. This guy has a lot of accounts. This guy has a lot of time in his hand. Like a dedicated troll. Dedicated. I'm gonna spend my entire day. I have 50 accounts. Those are the weird people you gotta like wonder about too. The people with, like, multiple accounts and they just have small little variations and they're just switching between all their accounts. Imagine what they could do with their life if they did something actually productive. But anyway, yo, thank you guys. Take care of yourselves. We'll be following some of these updates. I'll probably do a different story later today, just a regular video. And yeah. All right. Peace. Take care.